Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into a really intense moment from Isaiah chapter 36. It's this high-stakes confrontation, basically an empire versus one city.
It really is. And the setting is crucial. We're talking about the 14th year of King Hezekiah's rule in Judah. The whole region is, well, let's just say it's tense.
Tense is putting it mildly. Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, he's already been on a major campaign.
Oh, yeah. Isaiah and other records, too, they show he's not just knocking on the door. He's already smashed through many of Judah's fortified cities, big ones, like Lachish.
So the surrounding area is basically under Assyrian control.
Yeah.
And now, all eyes on Jerusalem.
Exactly. Sennacherib himself is back at Lachish, but he sends his top guy, his field commander, chief general and diplomat, rolled into one with a very large army detachment straight to Jerusalem.
And they don't just set up camp anywhere. They march right up to the city and stop at a specific spot, the aqueduct of the Upper Pool. It's near the road to the washerman's field, a public place.
Yeah. A very public place.
Yeah.
Deliberate, no doubt. They want this seen. They want it heard. So Hezekiah sends out his own delegation to meet them.
Not just anyone, though. These are top officials.
Right. You've got Eliakim, the palace administrator, kind of the chief of staff, then Shebna, the secretary, handling the official communications, and Joah, the recorder, probably there to document everything.
So 3 key figures from Judah walking out to meet this massive Assyrian force. The stage is definitely set.
And the Assyrian commander, he doesn't waste any time on small talk.
Yep.
He gets right down to it, addressing Hezekiah through these officials.
What's the opening shot?
It's a direct challenge. He asks them, point blank, on what are you basing this confidence of yours? It's less a question, more of an accusation, like what makes you think you stand a chance?
He's immediately trying to undermine their resolve.
Totally. He dismisses any idea that Judah has a viable strategy or real military power. Calls it empty words. Just talk, no substance.
Classic intimidation tactic. Devalue the opponent right from the start.
Exactly. And then he goes after their potential allies. He knows they might be looking to Egypt for help.
Ah, and this is where that really vivid analogy comes in.
Yes, the splintered reed of a staff. Think about leaning on a staff for support, right? But this one's a broken reed.
So when you lean on it,
it snaps. And worse, it pierces a man's hand and wounds him. So relying on Egypt isn't just useless, it's actually harmful. He spells it out. Such is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who depend on him.
Wow. So first he dismisses their own strength, then he shreds their main potential ally. What's next?
He goes for the core of Judah's identity and Hezekiah's whole platform. Their trust in the Lord, their God.
This feels like a dangerous move for the Assyrian. How does he approach it?
It's clever, actually. He tries to use Hezekiah's own religious actions against him. He knows Hezekiah has been centralizing worship.
Right. Hezekiah removed the high places, those local shrines and altars, to focus worship at the temple in Jerusalem. According to Kings and Chronicles, that was seen as a righteous act.
From Judah's perspective, yes.
Yeah.
A purification. But the Assyrian commander twists it. It basically suggests, hey, you know the God you're trusting. Your king ticked him off by tearing down his shrines. Maybe that's why he's not helping you.
That is subtle. He's planting doubt, suggesting Hezekiah might have alienated their own divine protector.
It's psychological warfare, trying to split the people from their king and their God all at once. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he throws in this incredibly arrogant, mocking offer.
The horses?
Yeah, the horses. He says, look, I'll make you a bet. My master will give you 2,000 horses.
Okay.
If you can actually find enough men in Judah qualified to ride them.
Ouch. So it's not a real offer. It's just rubbing their noses in their perceived weakness. You don't even have enough trained cavalry.
Precisely. It emphasizes the sheer scale difference.
Yeah.
We've got resources to spare. You can't even use them. He follows up by saying Judah can't repel even the lowest-ranking Assyrian officer, not even with Egypt's hypothetical help.
He's leaving them with absolutely nothing to stand on. Military, allies even, he argues, their God.
Systematically dismantling every possible source of hope. But he saves the most shocking claim for last in this initial speech.
What could be worse than all that?
He claims divine sanction. For his side, he tells the officials, essentially, look, I didn't just decide to come here on my own.
No.
He says, the Lord himself told me to march against this country and destroy it.
Wait, he claims Judah's own God sent the Assyrians.
Exactly. Can you imagine the enemy general whose army has been devastating your land, standing there saying your God commissioned him to finish the job? It's designed to be utterly crushing.
That's astonishing. How do Eliakim, Shibna, and Joah even react to that?
Well, their immediate reaction shows they understand the danger of these words spreading. They're thinking about the people in the city walls listening in.
So they try to manage the situation.
Yes, they make a very specific request to the commander. Please speak to us in Aramaic.
Why Aramaic?
Aramaic was becoming the common language for diplomacy and trade across the region. Educated officials like them would know it.
But the average person in Jerusalem wouldn't.
Probably not. They'd speak Hebrew. So the officials are trying to keep this toxic, demoralizing message contained, keep it away from the general population on the walls.
A desperate attempt to limit the psychological damage. Does it work?
Not a chance.
Yeah.
The Assyrian commander sees exactly what they're doing and refuses flat out. He says, basically, no, this message is for those men on the wall.
And why? What reason does he give?
This is where it gets incredibly brutal. He says the men on the wall need to hear it because they're going to suffer the same fate as everyone else inside if they resist. And he describes that fate graphically.
How graphic.
He says they'll be reduced to eating their own filth and drinking their own urine. It's a horrifying image of the absolute desperation of a long siege when supplies run out. Starvation, disease. He spells out the ugliest reality.
He's using sheer terror now, pure shock value to break their spirit.
Absolutely. And because the officials try to make it a private diplomatic talk, he escalates. He stands up, and the text says he shouts loudly in Hebrew.
So now he's bypassing the officials entirely.
Completely. He's addressing the crowd on the walls directly, launching a full-on propaganda broadcast over their heads.
What's his message directly to the people?
It's all aimed at getting them to surrender, to defy Hezekiah. He starts with a direct warning. Do not let Hezekiah deceive you. He cannot deliver you.
Undermining the king's credibility.
Right. Then he immediately goes after their faith, telling them, don't let Hezekiah convince you to trust in the Lord, countering the very message of hope Hezekiah would likely be giving them.
He's trying to sever their trust in both their earthly leader and their divine hope.
Precisely. Drive that wedge deep. Then he makes the Assyrian offer directly to them. Don't listen to Hezekiah. Make peace with me. Come out to me. Surrender.
And what's the payoff for surrendering?
He paints a picture of immediate relief. Every one of you will eat from his own vine and fig tree and drink water from his own cistern. It's the image of peace, security, normality, exactly what people under siege crave.
But there's a catch, isn't there? Assyrian policy usually involved deportation.
Yes, and he mentions it, but he spins it. He says after they surrender, they'll be taken away, but to a land like your own. He describes it attractively. A land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards.
Making exile sound like a resettlement program.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Masking the reality of being forcibly uprooted and moved under Assyrian control, which was standard practice to break resistance. Better than starving, he implies.
And to hammer home why they shouldn't trust the Lord, he brings up Assyria's track record.
This is his big argument. He asks them, has the God of any nation ever delivered his land from the king of Assyria? It's a rhetorical challenge based on past victories.
Does he give examples?
Oh, yeah. Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? These are places Assyria had conquered. Their gods clearly hadn't saved them.
And he uses an example that would hit very close to home for people in Jerusalem.
He specifically mentions Samaria, the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, which Assyria had destroyed decades before. Have they rescued Samaria from my hand? Everyone knew the answer was no.
A powerful, painful reminder of Assyrian dominance over people closely related to them.
It sets up his final punchline, his closing argument to the people on the wall. Who of all the gods of these countries has been able to save his land from me? How then can the Lord deliver Jerusalem from my hand?
Basically, your God is no different. Don't expect a miracle. It's a devastating conclusion.
Absolutely devastating, designed to extinguish any last flicker of hope based on faith.
So, the commander finishes this tirade, shouted in Hebrew for everyone to hear. What do the people on the wall do?
It's quite remarkable, actually. The text says they remained silent and said nothing in reply.
Complete silence after all that provocation.
Yes, and the reason given is key. Because the king had commanded, do not answer him.
So Hezekiah had anticipated this kind of thing. He'd ordered them not to engage.
It seems so. Incredible discipline on their part, you have to imagine. To stand there, hear those threats, those insults to their king and God, and just stay silent.
That itself is a powerful response in a way. What about the officials, Eliakim and the others?
They go back to Hezekiah, and the text says they have their clothes torn.
A sign of mourning, of deep distress.
Exactly. They've heard the worst. They've seen the strategy unfold. They've endured the humiliation. They are clearly shaken.
And what do?
They simply go to Hezekiah and they told him what the field commander had said. They deliver the message, the threat, the propaganda, all of it.
Okay, let's pull back a bit. Looking at this whole encounter in Isaiah 36, what are the big takeaways?
Well, it's just a masterclass in ancient psychological warfare, isn't it? You see how the Assyrians didn't just rely on brute force, they were sophisticated. They aimed to break the will to resist.
Yeah, the way the commander systematically attacks every single foundation of Judah's confidence, their army, their allies, and especially their faith in God, it's methodical.
And that use of specific arguments like twisting Hezekiah's reforms or the splintered reed analogy or the list of conquered gods, these aren't just random insults, they're tailored attacks.
The decision to switch to Hebrew and bypass the officials seems crucial too. That's pure information warfare, trying to stir up panic among the people.
Absolutely. Trying to create division, put pressure on Hezekiah from within his own city walls. It shows how words, propaganda, disinformation. These were potent weapons back then, just as they are now.
That claim that the Lord himself sent the Assyrians is just so audacious, turning their deepest belief against them.
It really is. And then you have the contrast, this barrage of aggressive Assyrian talk versus Hezekiah's order for silence. It's a fascinating contrast in strategies under pressure.
What do you make of this silence? Was it just fear or something else?
It's hard to say for sure, but given the command, it seems like a deliberate tactic. Maybe to deny the Assyrians the satisfaction of seeing their fear, or to prevent a shouting match they couldn't win. It's a refusal to play the game on the commander's terms. It forces the next move back onto the Assyrians.
So it's not passive surrender, but a different kind of resistance.
Possibly. It shows that leadership, even in the face of overwhelming odds, involves choosing how to respond, how to control the narrative, even if only through silence. This whole chapter just vividly illustrates that ancient conflict was as much about hearts and minds as it was about swords and shields.
So we've explored this incredibly tense moment from Isaiah 36, seeing the military pressure cooker combined with some intense psychological operations.
Yeah, the Assyrian playbook was clearly about demoralizing the enemy from every angle, using fear, cynicism, and even theology against them.
It really makes you think about the nature of defense. We've seen the loud aggression, the targeted propaganda, but it leaves us wondering, especially considering Hezekiah's command, what is the real strength or maybe the hidden vulnerability of a defense that relies on silence?